Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
It was around 1:30 in the morning when the anti-fascist or Antifa members allegedly vandalized the New York Republican headquarters in New York City. Windows were broken, doors spray painted, glue put in locks and handles. And a threatening note was also left behind saying, quote, "Tonight we put the Republican Party on notice in defiance to the policy of mass misery they have championed. The U.S. government has established concentration camps around the country for Latino people, shamelessly murders black people, and continues its war machine that has slaughtered Muslim people with impunity for decades." The note goes on to say their attack is just beginning, and it talks about Republicans inviting a, quote, "hipster fascist clown to dance for them," a reference to the GOP hosting Gavin McInnes, the founder of a far-right organization called Proud Boys, who have physically clashed with Antifa protesters on several occasions. Today, New York Republican Chairman Ed Cox called on Democrats to cease inciting these attacks.
So the Democrats are inciting it. Isn't that something? So they keep hosting these white supremacists. That guy with the sword that you saw in their clip, that is Gavin McInnes. That is who he is. And he was invited there for a second time to give another white supremacy speech. Okay? And the Republican club literally put out this statement about inviting for the second time a white supremacist to New York, which has, I don't know, 162 different ethnicities living there on this tiny little island. Yeah, it's a veritable United Nations. It is. They said, "We do invite speakers to the club with differing political points of view. Some we agree with and some which we do not." That's not even English. "But we are staunch supporters of the First Amendment. We want to foster civil discussion." You invited a guy to bring a samurai sword and talk about white supremacy. He said, "We never endorse violence." They characterized his white supremacist rally that he was able to have at the New York Metropolitan Republican Club on the Upper East Side of Manhattan as being politically correct and a bit edgy. White supremacists and white supremacy is edgy. It's a little bit edgy, everybody. It's just a little edgy. You know, people who actually, have, I don't know, drawn Nazi symbols on synagogues lately, or, run around in Klan gear, or burn crosses on people's lawns, or, suppress the vote, or, quote, Jim Crow as being the way that, good people behave in the South. I mean, this is just so amazing. So, of course, it led to political violence. Violence, I tell you. But here is the, I have two surveillance videos to show you. So here's the actual surveillance video of the terrible, terrible crimes. Oh, no, that's the beaten. Sorry, here. Here's the surveillance video. There's two guys walking. One goes up to the door. I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he's putting glue in the lock. I don't know, because he's got a baggie. Okay, now he's throwing stuff, and then they run away. And then he picks up the stuff that he dropped. This is what they painted on the door. That's the anti-fascist thing. All right, let's show it to you from a, this is them actually spray painting. Here you go. This is obviously from a Ring doorbell or some such thing, because you can see there he is painting an A with a circle twice. Paints an A with a circle twice. And you can watch it some more, but that's all that happens there. So he walks up to the door and he paints an A with a circle, and then they throw something at the building and they run away. Okay. That's vandalism. It is. I think you get a ticket for that in Manhattan. This leads to assault and battery, which is a crime. Yeah, assault and battery. Here are the Proud Boys attacking these guys that spray painted.
Go, boys! You ready?
Ready.
Boys! Oh, go!
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
No. Oh my God. No.
Take it! Pick this motherfucker!
Oh my God.
Go on, guys, stop! Walk away!
Okay, you get the idea. And those guys on those little motor scooters, those are police, and no one is arrested. Isn't that something? You got a guy down on the ground, and they're kicking the crap out of him while he's down on the ground. The police show up, and no one is arrested. Isn't that something? Not the people who vandalized. They should, obviously get a ticket for vandalism. And not the people who committed, assault and battery. No. So you have extremist groups inserting themselves into the Metropolitan Republican Club, which used to be a hoity-toity sort of a upper crusty. That is the Upper East Side. That is Park Avenue. Okay, that is the Upper East Side of Manhattan, and you got these guys running down the street chasing after these kids that spray painted the Republican Club after they give a white supremacy speech, and somehow there's moral equivalency there. That's bull crap. They were punched, they were kicked when they were on the ground. It's so unbelievable. Now, some of the old Republicans were interviewed for an article that BuzzFeed put out today. And they said this: it's an Upper East Side genteel club, and to have fist fights outside, well, it just doesn't match, said one former Metropolitan Republican Club president, who spoke to BuzzFeed News on the condition of anonymity. Oh, you're so strong. You invite white supremacists to Manhattan? Oh, you're so strong. He needs anonymity. The former president said the club's change since 2016 has followed a national shift in which, quote, the whole tone of the Republican Party has hardened, and the tone of American politics in general has hardened as well. Quote, I think that members of the Metropolitan Republican Club began to believe that they couldn't win offices again and said, fuck it. The former president said, adding that the group had changed after it had become clear about 10 years ago that Republicans couldn't even win state office on Manhattan's Upper East Side. And that's where the money is. And they won't vote Republican. And that's what, like an apartment a 2-bedroom, definitely $2.5, $3, $4 million, okay, depending on the view and its proximity to the park, okay, Central Park. He said, so we can't even win state office on Manhattan's Upper East Side. In the years since there haven't been elected officials, there's a temptation to wander into controversy, to get membership, to entertain, and it backfired. A lot of the old-time club members who have been around, old-time New Yorkers, have very strongly weighed in on this choice of speakers. That message was delivered very much so, adding that the current leadership had only the haziest idea of what their guests actually represent. Quote, They didn't even know who the Proud Boys are. Sounds like Gangs of New York, the former president said. Alan Bialik, a current board member of the club, told BuzzFeed News he personally does not stand by a lot of the rhetoric used by McGinnis and his followers, but he defended the club's decision to host the Proud Boys founder and said he believed McGinnis was only joking about white supremacists. He doesn't think they're really a hate group. But the Southern Poverty Law Center says they are. UC Davis had anti-Semitic spray paint all over and flyers circulating on the campus last week. The message on the flyers is reprehensible. There were black and white flyers, and they had pictures of Senator Dianne Feinstein, Professor Christine Blasey Ford, of course, George Soros. Anybody know George Soros? I really need some money, George. I really, just like one good check. Because we could use an advertising budget. We really could, especially in the face of all this political violence. And they also had Michael Avenatti, who I don't think is a Jew. They all had Stars of David on their heads. And the words, like if it was Michael Avenatti, it would say "good goy" on it. And then Brett Kavanaugh was also on the flyer, and they said, every time some anti-white, anti-American, anti-freedom event takes place, you look at it and the Jews are behind it. Okay, so that was UC Davis last week. And then in Washington, D.C., the police were investigating 19 swastikas that were spray painted on a Northern Virginia synagogue. But they're not a hate group. And, you know, the Metropolitan Republican Club says, well, that white supremacy thing, it's very edgy. We were just trying to entertain. We thought it was just jokes. We thought he was joking. We thought that was funny. Yeah, that's what he said. They defended the club's decision to host the Proud Boys founder and said he believes McInnes was joking and it's not a hate group. Uh-huh.
To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Take this motherfucker!
Oh, my God.
Fuck your dad, motherfucker! Kick the shit!
Come on, guys, stop! Stop!
All right, enough.
Stop!
These are some sick freaks, man. And the police, they don't go ahead and arrest people. So here we have political street violence becoming a thing, and the Republicans are running a campaign based on portraying Democrats as the violent mob. You know, maybe the vandal mob. You know, maybe we vandalize. It's not that I'm in favor of it, but any violence that feeds into their narrative, their campaign narrative, is good for that. So they have a reason to instigate violence, beyond the fact that they just like violence. These are people who have been sucker punching people since Trump started running for president, and a president who says he'll pay your legal bills. We've got police that watch somebody be kicked on the ground, literally just kicked over and over and over again. They show up and they're just like, oh, well, it's, whatever. I can't believe that they didn't arrest anybody who was beating the crap out of some guy who was already on the ground. But, as far as Trump supporters are concerned, the more violence, the better. They use it to push their fake story of the Democratic mobs. And frankly, Trump voters are better at violence. They just are. They've been wielding weapons, while wearing a Klan hood over their head for years. It's a skill that takes time to develop. This is just unbelievable. And the same damn thing happened in Portland. The right-wing agitators saw a Black Lives Matter event, and they decided that was, enough for them to start violence there. And so, and they started the violence chanting, "All lives matter, all lives matter." And then they tried to kill everybody. How does this make sense? And then the president stands at the stump and says, "Oh, you got to leave the Democratic Party, African Americans. You got to, while we suppress your vote and beat the crap out of you and host white supremacists." Are you kidding me? What is wrong with him? What is wrong with this party? I just stop it. All of you, just stop it. This is really twisted, I have to say. And the thing, Gavin McInnes, who founded the Proud Boys, it's a nationalist men's club. Who wouldn't want to belong to that? So after the speech, you had 24 of them from the club find a similarly sized group of protesters. And those were the people who, protest against fascism, right? And apparently one of them knocked a "Make America Great Again" hat off of the head of a white supremacist. And they said, "Let's tune him up." Because, spray painting, an A on the door for hosting a white supremacist and, knocking someone's hat off, the proper resolution to that difficult problem is to beat the crap out of them and then to have the police come and make no arrests. Honestly, I never saw anything like this. The Southern Poverty Law Center considers the Proud Boys an extremist group and that its members are, quote, "an ultra-nationalist, far-right skinhead crew." Now, the reason why they were protesting in Portland is because of the murder of Patrick Kimmons. It was a fatal police shooting in September, and of course, Patrick Kimmons happened to be an unarmed African American. And so this was enough for the conservative flash mob to just start, screaming and yelling, "All lives matter!" And then try to kill everybody. I mean, and they were bragging that the Proud Boys are running security, and the Portland police said it had been expecting trouble, and nobody knows, who sparked it. It was on 4th Avenue in Portland, and it's hard to tell in the cell phone videos. "Make America Great Again" hats were like a sea of red, and somebody wearing one of those punched somebody in the crowd in the face. And then you had all these fistfights start, and people scrambling and slamming into windows and collapsing onto the pavement, and then a flurry of kicking, and and then you had pepper spray. Could you please just stop this? Really, just stop this. This is unbelievable. And to the Republicans, you have one of two choices. Either stop hosting them and welcoming them into your bosom, or tell the president to stop asking for African Americans to vote for him while you're hosting white supremacists. Because the two, you can't hold two ideas. Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.